If someone is having acne, I know it's not their deficiency of antibiotics or creams for their face. I know there's something going skin deep that we need to find, and I love being that detective to find, okay, what's going on.
Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with me, Dr. Raja.
And me, Dr. Hadar, where we discuss all things skin.
Join us as we delve into the art and science of skin health in today's episode.
Hey, Raja, can you say the thing I told you to tell them?
Of course. We are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is not considered medical advice, nor does it serve as a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Health, Inc. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hey, Raja, how are you today?
Hadar, how's it going? I've just been thinking with all the summertime and all of the fun food we've been eating, shouldn't we talk a little bit more about nutrition and what about all these glucose spikes we're inducing in ourselves?
Oh yeah, glucose spikes galore. My friend, we're talking today about my favorite topic, which everybody knows by now, I hope, is food. Yes, food. We love to eat. And all this is kind of ramping up to our meeting coming up, the Integrative Dermatology Symposium, which this year, every year we talk about food, but this year we're really going to focus on nutrition. So I'm looking forward to see everybody there. But today we're going to talk about food and maybe touch on acne. A lot of my patients ask me all the time what kind of food I can eat to improve my health. And I have a ton of questions about that as well. So I think we need some expert to help guide us through this. What do you think?
Exactly, and we do. So we have Lienna May. She is a master's in nutrition. She's also board certified in clinical nutrition, and she's a licensed dietitian. She's working out in Florida. She has her own practice. And Lienna, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to talk food. I know Hadar is especially excited to talk food.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes, and perhaps you can give us in a couple of sentences an idea of your practice. What kind of patients typically come to your practice?
Yes, great question. Most of the time, a lot of clients who struggle with acne, gut issues, but also blood sugar issues. That's primarily who I see virtually and help them, and also help them to get to the root causes of those issues, helps them achieve optimal health.
Got it. It's really interesting you mentioning acne and then gut health, and I'm sure we'll dive into it in a minute, but perhaps you can tell us, because a lot of the folks listening may not realize, what kind of assessments do you do on initial intake or any blood test or any other assessments that you do and a typical dietitian nutritionist would do?
Sure, that's a great question. What we start with initial intake that someone fills out a lot of questions even prior to meeting with me that I can review before that. And those questions, they dive into deep what they eat, how is their gut health, digestive health, bowel movements, are they having any trouble with absorption of foods, are there certain foods that may be giving them some digestive discomfort. But we're not just looking at nutrition, what they're eating, what they're snacking, what they're drinking, but also look at their stress level, which is very important. Also, are they exercising? Are they doing any type of movement? We also look at sleep and also lifestyle factors. And for someone who is struggling with acne, I'm also going to look at their skincare, what products are they using, what's been working, what's not been working for them. So when we meet initially, we discuss everything. It helps me really to get to know them really well and identify key areas that we need to work on. Usually I try to pick one or two areas where the client having the most struggles. And a lot of times it's either gut issues or blood sugar imbalances. And I think the biggest one is also stress. We all live in a highly fast-paced environment. We're all stressed. So stress is a big one. And then we identify those areas and we work together to create long and short-term goals to help them achieve their optimal health. And also I help them make customized meal plan too, to see what we need to optimize in their nutrition. I love food too, so anytime we could talk about how to add more foods and include a variety of rich foods, fruits and veggies, healthy fats, I'm all in to help them reach their wellness goals.
I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, Lienna. What is the difference between, say, a clinical nutritionist and a dietitian? What's the difference in training and maybe their scope of practice before we jump into things? Can you just give us a good intro to that?
Sure. I would say it's two different areas and scopes of practice. Usually for dietitians, they have bachelor's degrees. For us clinical nutritionists who are CNS certified nutrition specialists, we have to have master's degree to obtain that. And then we go through 1,000 hours of clinical hours and kind of what you would say residency in the medical field, where we get a lot of practice one-on-one with clients and the supervisor. And our scope of practice, we really look at the whole person. There's a time and place for nutrients and calories, but we'll look much deeper. We've trained on biochemistry. We'll look at the genetics. Is there any genetic component to their health issues? We'll look at their whole health with stress, lifestyle. And really the biggest thing that I'm really passionate about, that's why I decided to go into this field, is to really find the root causes of health issues. If someone is having acne, I know it's not their deficiency of, antibiotics or creams for their face. I know there's something going skin deep that we need to find. And I love being that detective to find, okay, what's going on? What's driving the acne, that inflammation on their skin, and that I can help them get to know and find that root cause. We treat it and then they get better. And it just brings me a lot of joy doing that. So our scopes of practice is a little bit different. Registered dietitians work a lot of times in the hospital settings. They're great with hospital and that more standard calorie counting. And we are looking more into the whole holistic approach of everyone and implementing supplements and also functional medicine testing, comprehensive stool testing, organic acids, food sensitivities, genetics, just to help us get to the root causes faster.
So, I want to jump maybe into acne, and you mentioned the issue of root cause. I wonder, when you try to target the root cause,
Mm-hmm.
in principle, I know that every person is a little different, but in principle, what kind of diet really would help to mitigate some of the root causes that are involved in acne? There's so many diets out there, right? And they all may
Mm-hmm.
have a different effect. Most of the time we think about diets in the context of weight loss. And there's, people who say sugar is the evil of all things. There are people who say animal products are the source of all evil, maybe fats. So we get this like plant-based diet and keto and paleo and on and on and on. Which diet in principle you think really addresses root causes in acne?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question because I've also struggled with acne myself. So I speak from a lot of this from my own experience, but also from clinical experience as well. I would say the best one is really anti-inflammatory diet. Anytime we can incorporate more healthy fats, such as omega-3 fatty acids. I know you talked about it on the previous podcast, how much they help lower inflammation. That's where the Mediterranean diet comes in. So anytime we can bring inflammation down, it's going to really help with a lot of anti-inflammatory foods such as ginger, turmeric, a lot of leafy greens, cruciferous veggies. We will really start seeing the results, but also incorporating healthy fats, omega-3 fatty acids such as wild-caught salmon, mackerel, sardines, walnuts, olive oil, avocados, including lots of fiber to help balance hormones naturally, help with the bowel movements as well. That would really help too. And I think the biggest piece of it too is really consuming optimal intake of protein. I see a lot of people, especially women, under eating their protein. They're not eating enough. And protein is super important, especially if you think of L-glutamine, which helps repair our gut lining. If someone has a leaky gut, also glycine that supports natural liver detox. Protein is super important, especially if someone having skin issues or gut issues. I look at that as well. But I think to summarize, an anti-inflammatory diet is all in. That's the best bet to start with.
That's very interesting. So, for some of my patients coming and they have what we call hormonal acne, I mean, we know that there's several factors that play a role, but you mentioned hormones and kind of passing. I was wondering if there are particular diets. I mean, for example, some people suggest that animal products, right? Because some people suggest that because animals receive hormones, then that is delivered to us, and that may drive diseases such as acne. Do you find that in your practice useful to maybe eliminate or reduce these type of foods versus other?
Yes, especially when it comes to dairy. We know from the research dairy is very pro-inflammatory for especially for anyone with acne. All of the dairy products, whether it's cheese, milk, yogurt, absolutely, especially if we think of conventional dairy, the way the cows are raised and what they're fed, absolutely. What I've noticed, if we're talking about the quality of meat, if it's coming from grass-fed, pasture-raised, pasture finished meat, it's much better. Even if we think about beef, when I look at the research studies, the beef that was raised with, grass fed and grass finished, it shows that it has almost as high omega-3 fatty acids sometimes that could be in fish. And then as soon as they start feeding it corn and some of those vegetarian fat diet, the percentage of omega-3 fatty acids in the meat declines significantly. So I think it's all about the quality, really. I educate my clients that it's better to eat smaller quantity of meat, but it's a higher quality where you know the farmer, local when possible, and grass-fed, grass-finished. If it's with seafood, it's wild caught, sustainably caught, best as well.
You talk about an anti-inflammatory diet, and I wanted to expand this conversation. I know we wanted to get to glucose monitoring, which I'm super interested to hear your take on this. But before we get there, there's a lot of anti-inflammatory diets that are used for other conditions too that people just talk about generically anti-inflammatory diet, like for hidradenitis suppurativa, or say it's like psoriasis, or maybe even if they have rosacea, or even if they have an autoimmune condition, people are like, I'm trying an anti-inflammatory diet. So my question to you is an anti-inflammatory diet an anti-inflammatory diet an anti-inflammatory diet, or are there nuances there depending on what you're treating?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times people think of anti-inflammatory diet that, I can go and do a lot of juicing. There's a time and place for it, or they want to detox, they're doing that as a detox. But if you look at the biochemistry for, our detox for phase 1 and 2, we really need that optimal protein intake, to help make our fat soluble toxins, to make them water soluble, to be able to take them out of the body. So I see people do that a lot of the plants and, veggies, and they're doing it, but they're not eating enough protein to help them really rebalance their gut health and properly detox with liver. So there's time and place for it. Anytime, I like to show an example. I take a plate from my clients and say, think of anti-inflammatory diet, fill up your plate with half of the, especially non-starchy veggies, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, spinach, just to give you lots of nutrients and also teach them about the rainbow. Try to eat as many colors as you can because it's going to get you the most nutrients. The same with berries too. Try to incorporate some fresh herbs, ginger, turmeric to bring the inflammation down. Because with acne, inflammation really throws everything off with acne. So, yeah, absolutely. I feel like every person is unique, so I definitely customize it for everyone based on what they need, what other health issues are they having, like you mentioned. Are they also having hormonal issues that we need to support their liver detox? What we need to do if they're having a lot of gut issues. I can't really give them a lot of raw veggies because they can't really absorb them really well. They're having trouble if they have diarrhea, or constipation. We need to find maybe they need to be more cooked, or slow cooked just to help their absorption. So it does really depends. You're right. Every person is different. So it's important to customize it to meet where they are to help them reach their goals. I hope that answers the question.
No, it does. And I did have a
Okay.
follow up. So just to be specific about certain foods that you might discuss, because sometimes, we can talk about it generally, which I really appreciate, but it's fun to also look at what are the kind, I mean, I'm not going for an exact plan here, but just what are the kind of foods you might discuss? Say someone is dealing with hormonal issues, hidradenitis suppurativa or acne,
Mhm.
and you're also trying to do something anti-inflammatory. What are the kind of foods that you might bring up and explore if it might be a good fit?
Oh, sure. I know I mentioned those before, so I'll go back to them, but definitely cruciferous veggies, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, those are amazing, but because they have a high content of DIM, which then, helps us to detoxify and help them, clear their liver. And those will naturally support hormonal balance, but also leafy greens, kale, spinach, all of those things that, arugula, that are packed with so many phytonutrients, minerals, magnesium, to really help support their hormonal balance. Those are probably my favorite ones. Definitely lots of cruciferous veggies, leafy greens, but also, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, a lot of berries too that are amazing, high in fiber, but also great for lowering inflammation and have a lot of antioxidants as well.
What's really fascinating about this is if you look at the Ayurvedic approach,
Mm-hmm.
the traditional form from India, what I think is really, really fascinating is that for people with acne that are
Mm-hmm.
hormonal, the foods from an Ayurvedic theory perspective that you'd choose are leafy greens,
Mm-hmm.
cruciferous vegetables, berries. It's mind blowing. It's fascinating. I mean, Hadar, this is so interesting how it's so lovely to talk to you about these things, Lienna, to get, nutritionist a Western perspective because I see the synergies between different perspectives here. So cool.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and absolutely love both of your perspective just because, I wish I had you in my life when I was struggling with acne because of that integrative dermatology approach. And maybe I didn't know how to look for it back then, but it's so important. And I'm so glad both of you are doing, sharing your knowledge and helping so many people too.
Yeah, Raja, I think it's really cool that people made these observations. They just described it a little differently
Yeah, I
between
know,
the
right?
Mm-hmm.
Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine
Or
or just,
naturopathy or,
yeah.
clinical nutrition
But
or,
just making those observations, seeing it in front of them in nature, and then saying, I think I'm going to call it X, Y, and Z, and then try to treat it. And so, if you're consistent about that, and it's a kind of scientific method, right? If we objectively are consistent about it, we'll get to the same conclusion because we're repeating the same experiment. Anyways, so I agree with you totally, 100%.
Hey, continuous glucose monitoring. We got to talk about this.
Yes.
My gosh,
Yes.
everybody and their next door neighbor is talking about continuous glucose monitoring. They're all trying new diets. They all want to get glucose monitoring device, get it put on their arm. I see a lot of my patients walking around with this. I thought glucose monitoring was a thing for diabetics, but now it's a thing for everybody. So, can you talk us through this? And obviously, the relevance of glucose spikes is there for HS or acne or whatnot. So, yeah, please.
Sure, absolutely. A continuous glucose monitor is a really cool tool, and I'm glad we have it now, and a lot of people can get it. You don't have to be diabetic because it can really help you optimize your health. And you're right, a lot of times people start with blood sugar because it is a very personalized tool. What you see, you put it on. And what I've seen with a lot of my clients, I know it sounds crazy. You would think raspberries, they're high in fiber, they're low in sugar, they're like ideal fruit to eat. And I've had clients who would eat raspberries even just a little bit and it would really spike their blood sugar. For other clients, they can eat a banana, they have no trouble. But then for others, banana would really spike their blood sugar more than a donut. So what I love about continuous glucose monitor is that it really gives you personal insight to your body, how best to, what foods are great for you that helps you strive, that helps you avoid those blood sugar spikes. And also even, how to best balance those foods. Like, let's say if sweet potatoes are spiking your blood sugar, what else can you do? Can you add more leafy greens or cruciferous veggies, some healthy fats and some protein to really help you still eat sweet potatoes that you enjoy, but help you balance so it doesn't spike your blood sugar tremendously. Because essentially, a lot of those blood sugar spikes is going to lead to higher insulin, and that's going to also lead to higher cortisol, which increases your inflammation in the body, and that leads to a cascade where someone's ending up with having more inflammation, more breakouts, and acne. So, I absolutely love this tool because it does really help that personal insight where, like, how can we best, what food should you eat, how to best balance your meal. Should you start with protein on your plate first, load up with lots of veggies? So it's super amazing. And I think a lot of my clients too also learned too that is not just what they're eating, but they've noticed, okay, I'm going to bed super late, I wake up early, I didn't get enough sleep, I'm craving more carbs the next day, more sugar, or even clients who are eating healthy, but they didn't sleep well. The next day they get up and they see a lot more spikes. So it really helps me to show them, look, everything you're doing into your lifestyle really fits into big picture, what's causing, maybe contributing to acne. The same with stress. Someone who is really stressed, they're eating healthy, they see that, oh my goodness, I didn't realize the stress really spikes my blood sugar. I was like, yeah, let's think about it. What can we do? Can we do yoga? Can we do a meditation? Can you go for a walk? So it's such a cool tool, even for acne, of able to help a lot of clients to bring their blood sugar down, naturally balance their hormones, but also show them what foods maybe, throwing their blood sugar off and how to best balance them.
And Lienna, can you briefly describe to us how this works? Because it sounded a little scary and complicated, right? You got to put this thing in your arm. You walk around with it for how long? Is there a journal? Is there an app?
Yeah,
How
it's
do
like
you
a deep
figure all that?
needle. It goes right into the muscle, samples from the, no, I'm kidding, obviously.
Yeah, to be honest, I was kind of scared myself to put it on first. I'm not a needle person. That's why I went into nutrition. I couldn't be a doctor. So when I looked at that needle, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I could do it myself. But you take it off, and the way it's done, it really does a quick click. It attaches to the muscle on your arm, and I promise you, it's very painless. There is no pain. You can't even feel anything. And then, yes, ideally, you usually wear it for about 2 weeks. One monitor will last you 2 weeks, essentially. You can just keep replacing them, but one lasts 2 weeks, and it connects to the app where you can log in your meals, your sleep, stress, everything. And every time you eat, you look at it, it's going to tell you an hour later or 2 hours later too. You can look how much it spikes your blood sugar. And essentially you want to be around, not go more than 110, 120. Anything higher, 130, 140, 150, 160, it's more of a, when I tell my clients that meal wasn't optimal, it really spiked your blood sugar too much. And they could really see on the app too, you see those a lot of mountain peaks, they're high, then, I always tell, like, we want to keep it more steady, just more of a curved line, not too many spikes, to keep your energy steady throughout the day. Yeah. And then they also see a lot of times that their blood sugar might be spiking at night because they're not sleeping well, or they're waking up a lot, or stress. Yeah, the app is really helpful because you can input your meals, so you'll know, okay, I had this coffee, I had a muffin from Starbucks, it spiked my blood sugar too much. Okay, maybe I shouldn't do that again.
It's like biohacking, except this is just a small bite into biohacking.
Yes.
Hadar, we got our dad joke in. So I think it's a success for today. Well, Lienna, I have to say, this has been really interesting to speak to you. And we really appreciate the opportunity to talk about nutrition. Gosh, there's so many topics. We probably should get you back to just discuss it some more. I just want to remind everybody, we do have nutrition as the theme for the upcoming Integrative Dermatology Symposium, October 27th through the 29th. Join us in Reno. And Lienna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'd love to be back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guess what, Hadar?
What?
Tickets are selling so fast for the 6th Annual Integrative Dermatology Symposium.
Really? Wow, that's amazing. I mean, each time this event gets better and better.
Yes, it does. And as a special gift to our podcast listeners, all of you, we're offering 15% off registration using the code PODCAST15.
PODCAST15 for 15% off. That's a great deal. And prices won't be going any lower this year, so hurry up and get that discount.
So true. And if you haven't joined us in person yet, we can't wait to see you. And this is the year to come have fun at the Grand Casino Resort in Reno, Nevada.
Yes, we are excited to see you, and together with Raja and myself and other practitioners, you will get to connect with everybody, engage with the exciting research and content, and learn what the integrative movement is all about as we get inspired by the Sierra Nevada mountain range and, my friend, downtown Reno.
All that nestling sounds fantastic. Dad joke alert, maybe even skin-tastic. I know we're all about having fun at the symposium, but this year's over the top. Now, I'm not much of a golfer, but for you golfers out there, they have over 40 courses, but they also have rock climbing, equestrian trails, boat tours, pools, arcades, and so much more to just relax.
Oh my gosh, this definitely sounds like a family-friendly getaway. I know I'm bringing the kids. And while they're at the movies, Raja, you and I, my friend, no pun intended here, but we'll be feasting on a lot of nutrition.
That's right. This year's theme has been long awaited. Nourish the gut, nourish the skin, and we'll be delving into nutrition.
Oh my gosh, we can't wait to see you. Come be with us at the IDS on October 27th to the 29th, in person or virtually. See you in Reno.